Hello friends, welcome to my class today. Today we'll be seeing a new topic in obstetric and gynecology subject, that is cesarean section. So if you are the first time watching my video, please subscribe to my channel and also click the like and notification button and comment for any suggestions below. Okay, coming to the definition, cesarean delivery, it is also called C-section or cesarean section. So here we surgically remove the baby from the mother's abdomen. So here an incision, that is a cut, is made on the mother's abdomen and also on the uterus in order to remove the baby, and this is more risk than the normal vaginal delivery. Coming to the classification of cesarean section, so they are classified based on the urgency as planned and emergency cesarean section. Planned is also called a selective cesarean section. So as the name, the surgery is planned before itself, that is they arrange the surgery or arrange for surgery ahead of time. And here there may be some maternal indications like any previous cesarean history of previous cesarean section, or it can be a twin pregnancy or more than twin pregnancy, and it can be any maternal diseases where the baby where the mother will be undergoing a surgery, that is called as planned cesarean section, and this surgery is usually done after 39 weeks of gestation so that the fetus, that is baby, is mature enough to be delivered. An emergency cesarean section is done in case like it is emergency, so that here the vaginal delivery will be planned for the mother, but due to some fetal distress or any emergency conditions which is life threatening for the baby or the mother, then they immediately post the mother for the surgery, that is called as emergency cesarean section. And based on the surgical technique, okay, surgical technique is what type of incision they make. They are classified as classical cesarean section or lower uterine segment cesarean section. So a classical cesarean section is the cesarean which is followed for a long time of years, and here the incision will be made vertical, okay, that is from up to down, and this cesarean is done when the lower uterine segment is not formed fully, okay, when the lower uterine segment is not formed adequately, so that there cannot be made a lower uterine incision, then they may make a vertical incision. Here there is a large space in the abdomen for the baby to be delivered. And next is the lower uterine segment cesarean section. So here the incision is made transverse, that is in a horizontal way at the lower segment. So it is also called as a bikini line, where the that is the pubic hairline will be there, okay. So on that area they make a incision in a horizontal way, that is just above the edge of the bladder, and then they will deliver the baby. So here the complications for the mother is less. Okay, so we can consider for vaginal delivery in the next pregnancy, because in the lower uterine segment there is a small incision, so the incidence of uterine rupture is also less in case of lower uterine segment cesarean section. So in the next pregnancy there is a chance for mother to go for a normal vaginal delivery. Okay, coming to the maternal indications of cesarean section. So multiple pregnancy, that means if there is more than one fetus in the womb, and if the mother has some health problems like high blood pressure or unstable heart disease, then the mother cannot go a vaginal delivery because it can cause cardiac arrest. So they take the mother for cesarean section. And if mother is having any active genital herpes, so it is a sexually transmitted disease. So when the baby is coming through the vagina, then this infection can be transmitted to the baby. So they go for cesarean section. And if the mother has a previous history of cesarean delivery, so mainly if there is a classical cesarean delivery, then the mother has having chance of the mother will go for the cesarean section. And problems with placenta such as placental abruption. So placental abruption means prematurely the placenta will get delivered, that is will be removed from the uterus, and placenta previa is abnormal placental positions, okay. So mainly the placenta has to be embedded in the fundus of the uterus. So when the placenta is abnormally embedded, then if it is embedded in the lower segment, and it can close the os, so that the vaginal delivery is not possible. Next, problems with umbilical cord. So like vasa previa, multilobate including bilobate and subcentrivate lobed placentas, velamentous insertion. So these are all abnormal insertion of the umbilical cord. So in these conditions also there can be a massive respiratory distress for the fetal distress. So we have to take a cesarean section. And preeclampsia, here there is high blood pressure and increased protein excretion in urine. So again in these conditions mother cannot deliver through vaginally, so immediately we have to take a cesarean section. And previously high risk fetus, okay, so if there is any high risk like if there was a history of any forceps delivery or any high risk for the fetus, then the mother will go for cesarean delivery. And again if the mother have a HIV infection with high viral load, then they go for cesarean section. To the fetal indications, so if the baby has any developmental conditions, okay, so there are some Down syndrome and other so many diseases for the baby or developmental problems are there in the fetus, then they go for cesarean section. And macrosomia is where the baby's head is abnormally high, where so that it cannot come through the vaginal, that is birth canal, then they take for cesarean section. And malpresentation, so other than the occiput, that is if the head is not the presenting part, other than that if there is any breech birth or any transverse labor, then they take cesarean section. And reduced oxygen supply to the baby, that is where the fetus is having reduced oxygen due to some problems in the umbilical cord, then they take cesarean section. And any fetal distress, like if there is meconium stained and the fetus is inhaling the meconium, it can cause distress, so that time they take for cesarean section. And cord prolapse, okay, so again if the cord is coming out of the uterus, then this cord can get compressed and the baby will not get sufficient blood supply and the fetal distress can occur, so at that time they take cesarean section. And failed labor induction is after oxytocin administration, if they want to deliver the baby and the mother is not having effective contractions, then they go for cesarean section. And failed instrumental delivery, so in some cases they attempt to take the delivery with forceps or ventos, so if that is unsuccessful, then the mother will be need to deliver through a cesarean section. Next, coming to the risk after a cesarean section, okay, that means what all the complications can occur after a cesarean. So first is infection. So this is because the first skin is the first line of barrier, so when that is cut, then the microorganism can easily enter inside and can cause infection. And postpartum hemorrhage, so it is a surgical procedure, so there can be high bleeding after the delivery and after surgery. And blood clots, okay, sometimes blood clots can enter inside the blood vessels, that is in the veins, and it can go to the pulmonaries, and in the pulmonaries it can cause an embolism, and this embolism is a life threatening for the mother. And wound infections, again the surgical wound, if it is not dressed properly with any antimicrobial solutions are not adequately used and cleaned, then the wound can go for infection, and also it can go for dehiscence. Dehiscence is where the surgical wound can open. And breathing problems, so during cesarean section they use anesthetic agents, and this can cause the mother to go for some breathing problems like tachypnea and abnormal respiratory sounds. And next is surgical injury. So this is a rare complication. So during surgery, accidentally the bowel and bladder which is near the uterus can also get injured. And increased risk for future pregnancies. So if the mother is going for future pregnancy, there is also risk, sometimes uterus can rupture, and also there can be some adhesions within the uterus, so there is risk for the future pregnancy. To the steps of procedure, first is anesthetic injection, and after anesthesia we put multiple layers of incision, so that is on the skin, fascia, and on the uterus, peritoneum we cut, and next the fetal extraction, that is removing the baby, and then cord clamping, so we clamp the cord and inspecting the baby for any complications, and removal of placenta. Next is uterus will be closed, then the fascia and the skin closure. The first step is anesthetic administration. So there are three types of anesthesia. General anesthesia, so this is rarely used, and here the anesthetic agents is administered IV, and the patient is put to sleep during the operation. And next is epidural block. So here the anesthetic agent is introduced into the spinal space. So either they give in through a tube or without a tube. So if they put a tube, you can also administer analgesic agent even after the operation. So this anesthetic agent will numb the lower half of the body, that is below the abdomen, and there is easily surgery can be performed. And next is spinal block. Again here the anesthetic agent is administered in the spinal fluid. Okay, so directly on the spinal fluid they give the anesthetic agent, and this also makes produces numbness in the lower part of the body. After administration of anesthesia, so usually given a spinal or epidural, so the surgery will begin. So this anesthesia effect will take around 20 to 30 minutes to accomplish, and once it accomplishes there will be powerful numbing that will happen quickly and effectively. The second step is the multiple layer of incision. So first we make an incision on the abdomen, that is on the skin. So here you can make an incision either in a transverse or vertical. Transverse is a horizontal incision. So in transverse there is less postoperative pain and also increased wound strength. So wound healing will occur effectively and better cosmetic outcome. Okay, because the incision is the lower abdomen, it cannot be revealed outside. Okay, so with panties you can close the incised area, so it will not be revealed outside. So there is a better cosmetic outcome. Whereas vertical incision is easy to enter the abdomen, and it is also reserved for instances, that is when the surgery has to be performed quickly, that is there is some life threatening condition for the fetus and you want to save the life of the fetus, then if for immediate access we can do a vertical incision. Once the skin is incised, the layers below the skin also should be incised in order to gain access to the uterus. So the next layer is the subcutaneous tissue layer. So it will be bluntly dissected with the fingers, and it will reveal the rectus fasciae sheath. So on the rectus fasciae sheath, a small incision with a scalpel, that is a blade or a scissor, will be used to cut the rectus muscles, and beneath the rectus muscle then will be separated, and beneath that the parietal peritoneum will be there, so that also will be opened bluntly with the fingers. And when we have to make sure there is no damage to the bowel or bladder. Okay, bladder is very near to the uterus, so we have to use a bladder blade retractor to keep the bladder away from the uterus. They remove the intraperitoneal adhesions in order to expose the uterus. Okay, so here any adhesions if there is in the abdominal wall on the anterior surface, that will be dissected. So this also will be dissected bluntly with the help of the fingers, and only if it is needed, then any sharp dissections will be needed. And once the uterus is properly exposed, it can be opened to allow the delivery of baby. Once the retroperitoneal adhesions, that is the adhesions on the abdominal wall are removed, then we have to open the visceral layer. So visceral layer is the layer that is attached to the uterus, so that layer will be incised carefully with a scalpel, that is blade. Okay, finally incision is made on the uterus, so it is also called as hysterotomy. So here before doing the incision, the surgeon must know about the fetus location and the placenta location. So based on that they make an incision. So usually a lower transverse incision is made, which is advantageous because of less blood loss, and also there is less need for bladder dissection and also less uterine rupture, and also risk of subsequent pregnancies is less. Once the uterus is cut, the incision should be large enough to remove the fetus. So fetus extraction is nothing but the baby is removed. Once the baby is removed, we have to clamp the cord. So usually two clamps will be used. One is on the maternal side, and the other is on the baby side. And in between the two clamps, the cord will be cut. Okay, once the cord is cut, then the oxytocin injection will be administered in order to promote uterine contraction, and gentle pressure will be applied on the umbilical cord in order to expel the, so that is in order to remove the placenta, and the entire uterus will be wiped with a gauze, that is gauze or sponge, so that all the placental tissues will be removed. Okay, once the placenta everything is removed, then we have to close the uterus and the abdomen. So in uterine closure, so double layer closure will be used. So this to prevent the uterine rupture. So first layer is the endometrial layer. So this is used with either simple running suture or locked suture will be used. So in case of locked suture, there will be hemostasis. Okay, that means bleeding can be arrested. So if there is any evidence of arterial bleeding, then they do a hemostatic, that is locked suture in order to arrest the bleeding. Okay, and second layer will be the myometrium. So that is the overlaying layer of the myometrium also will be kept above, so that it will hide the first layer. Okay, that is the endometrium should go inside, and it will should the overlaying layer, that is myometrium, should be put up, and it will be closed, and myometrium is also closed with a simple running sutures. Okay, next is the fascia and skin closure. So the rectus fascia will be closed using a simple running suture or a continuous suture. So this will provide wound strength. And the last step is closing the skin. Here a subcuticular suture method is used. So this is because the scar that is remaining after the procedure will be very minimal in subcuticular suture. In nursing management, first we must do a pre-operative assessment. So you have to assess the women for any past surgeries, secondary illness, or any allergies for foods or drugs, or any reaction to anesthesia. So this all history has to be collected to identify whether there is any complication for the mother during the surgery. And we have to monitor vital signs regularly. So that is the temperature, BP, the pulse rate, respiratory rate, everything should be monitored. And women should be in best possible physical and psychological state before undergoing surgery. Okay, so we have to prepare the person both physically and psychologically. Okay, that is all. The vital signs should be normal, and physically the person should be healthy, and also psychologically you have to relieve the anxiety, fear of the mother. We have to collect history about the person's general medication history, because certain medications, like if the person is taking any aspirin or any medicines which can cause bleeding during the surgery, so any risk that can pose during the surgery, those medication history we have to collect. And we have to assess the fluid electrolyte balance of the person, and in case if there is any fluid replacement, that we have to do it in pre-operatively. And there are women who are worried about the procedure. So if there is a surgical procedure, women will be very fear and anxiety will be there. So you have to give good psychological support and emotional support for the mother, and acknowledge the woman's fear of surgery is normal. So you should say it is normal, and you can also introduce the person to some other women who has undergone the surgery and who is having a good prognosis. And there are some preoperative diagnostic procedures. So in that you have to do a fetal assessment. So you have to check for the fetal heart rate, fetal presentation, that is what is the presenting part, and fetal maturity. Okay, so that is using an ultrasonogram we can assess the fetal maturity. And circulatory assessment, here you have to check for the vital signs, complete blood count, hemoglobin, WBC, RBCs, platelets. So if the WBC is high, then the person is having any infection, or if the hemoglobin is low, then we have to get ready for the blood. And also we have to see the platelet counts if the mother is having any bleeding problem. And prothrombin, partial thrombin time, this again to identify if the mother has any bleeding disorders. And blood grouping and cross matching, in order to if the mother is needing any hemorrhage and is needing for blood to get ready, we have to do a cross matching and typing. And renal function test, with the help of serum electrolytes and urine analysis, you can identify whether the kidneys are functioning properly. This is the preoperative management. So in preoperative management, first step we have to get the consent. So consent is we have to explain the mother about all the surgical procedure and all the complications, etc. Then we have to get the signature from the mother, and also the witness from a witness saying that the mother has signed. Okay, and all those we have to explain in the mother's language, in which the mother can understand. And once the mother is admitted in the hospital, we have to put the hospital gown, and also make the person clean, and also put the hair up. Okay, we have to tie the hair up, and also put a cap on the head. And the woman's nails should be cut short, and there should not be any nail paint or anything. So this can because we have to check the capillary refill time during surgical procedure. So you have to make sure the nails are clean. And for skin preparation, we have to shave the hair and also wash the hair with some antibacterial solution so that it can reduce the bacterial transmission during the procedure. And in order to decrease the stomach secretions, we have to do gastric emptying. So before surgery, that is during surgery, aspiration can happen. So you can also put a Ryle's tube and aspirate if required. And a catheter has to be inserted in the bladder in order to promote the urine and also to make the bladder shrink so that the surgical injury in the bladder can be minimized. And the urine should be draining freely, and the drainage bag should always be kept at the lower level of the mother, okay, so that it will prevent the backflow to the bladder. And ensure the woman is hydrated, so intravenous ringer lactate solution can be started if there is no adequate fluids in the mother. And any preoperative medications if needed, it has to be administered. Okay, mostly in cesarean section, pre-op medications are avoided because it can cause harmful effects for the baby. And all procedures whatever we are doing, it has to be documented clearly, completely, and factual. Factual is only truth has to be documented. Next is intraoperative care. So this is care given during the surgery. So once the patient is shifted to the operation room, the patient will be transferred from the stretcher to the operation table, and pillows can be kept at the right hip in order to slightly elevate the tilt the patient's body so that supine hypotension can be prevented. And in case of spinal anesthesia, we have to make the person in a C shape, and during because of the growing uterus, the mother may have the difficulty to maintain the position, so help the mother to gently lean and make a C position, and restrain her in that position for sometimes during the anesthetic medication is injected. And in case of epidural anesthesia, you can make the patient to lie on the side, and this anesthesia will last for 24 hours, so you have to continuously monitor the pulse oximetry and respiration, so because it can cause respiratory anesthetic side effect is the respiratory depression. While positioning the mother on the operation table, we can put a towel on the under the right hip and move the abdominal contents, and also the make sure the uterus is away from the inferior vena cava so that it will provide an effective surgical field. Okay, the surgical field should be draped with sterile drapes so that only the incision area should be exposed. Okay, and additionally we can also clean the surgical site with some antiseptic solutions, and again we can use extra sterile drape so that only the incision area will be visible. And you have to assist the surgeon for the whole surgical procedure. This is the post-operative care. So it is divided as immediate postpartum care and extended postpartum care. So in the immediate postpartum period, so we have to transfer the person from stretcher to the post anesthetic care unit, and we have to assess the surgical site for any bleeding or any hematoma. And if the spinal anesthesia is used, then the person will have anesthesia of the legs so that they cannot move them, so you have to identify that. And see for any pain control, so with any analgesia we have to control the pain because patient may have intense pain and the women will be inability to move or breathe. And if the person has difficulty in breathing, he can go for complications like pneumonia and thrombophlebitis. So you have to immediately monitor the pain using the rating scale, and you can also give patient control analgesia. Or if the person has an epidural catheter, then through the epidural path catheter we can administer analgesia to relieve the pain, and supplement the analgesics with comfort measures like changing position and straighten the bed linen. So all these measures can reduce the pain. Okay, to minimize pain, the mother can use a pillow on her lap while breastfeeding, or she can use a football hold method in order to prevent the infant's weight on the mother's incision. Okay, in extended postpartum care, so mainly problems with GI function will be there for the mother. So you have to see whether the mother bowel movement after first bowel movement after surgery is there or not. If not, then we have to provide a stool softener for stool evacuation, and also instruct the mother to eat high diet high in roughage and also drink fluids in order to help in bowel movement and to avoid constipation. And also you have to tell the mother not to not to strain over stools, because this can cause wound adhesions. Okay, that is, it can cause pressure on the incision and the wound can open. So patient mother should not strain during stools. So instead we can give stool softeners for easy passage of stools. And tell the mother to drink lots of oral fluids, and also instruct the mother on exclusive breastfeeding for 6 months for the baby, and teach mother on breast care, newborn care, cot care, eye care and bathing. So all these procedures should be demonstrated for the mother, and reassure the woman about all the home care management. And so you have to teach them how to take care of the baby at home, and instruct about postpartum exercises and ambulation. So teach the mother to do some exercises and also ambulation. So all these are procedures we have to teach the mother during the discharge. Okay, after cesarean section, the mother and the baby will remain in the hospital for 2 to 4 days, and the new mother will experience pain at the site of incision. There will be cramping, bleeding, that is with or without clots. Bleeding can come out of the vagina for 4 to 6 weeks. This should be explained to the mother, and the severity of the symptoms will vary according to the women and also the type of operation they have done, and this will improve as time passes. In the postpartum period, when the obstetrician visits the mother can clarify all the doubts, and also she can ask any questions if she has regarding her progress. And we have the mother has to restrict the physical activity while returning to home. That is, when after discharge also she should restrict the physical activity, and she can do normal activity only after 4 to 6 weeks after the surgery. So until then she has to avoid all strenuous exercises like lifting heavy objects or placing anything on the vagina, and also having sex should be avoided for the next 4 to 6 weeks. All those education should be given to the mother. So thank you for listening. I hope you would have understood my class. Please like, share, subscribe and click the notification button for regular update of my videos.